Now I want to talk about how you can continue the meditative process, continue this state of expanded consciousness, and at the same time be noticing how your self-experience is arising in the moment. And in this particular time together, I want to talk about a simple way in which you can stay, how do I say that? That you can monitor, you can put your attention toward, so that you can track in general how you're doing. And it's something like this, that as our consciousness, as our sense of our consciousness expands, because our consciousness is actually not expanding and shrinking, our attention, or how we imagine our, it's not quite the right word either. Let me see if I can simplify it. Let me just say it in simple terms. It's not going to be quite right. As our consciousness seems to expand and contract, and as we go into the meditative state, and as that sense of omnipresence develops, and that sense of boundarylessness, and that sense of timelessness comes into being, there is a natural exuberance, a natural joy that springs up, and it's not the kind of joy that you get from. It's not a manufactured joy. It's not the kind of joy that we have manufactured on top of the disconnection in order to fill the void of the disconnection. And I covered that in some other videos. And some other talks. It's a more subtle form. It's a more subtle form of asphorescent, the bubbling, the word that means that things are bubbling. Effervescent, I think, is the word I'm looking for. It's a more effervescent formation, a sense that is bubbling up, and with that comes a certain amount of energy and spontaneity. And if you meditate and you sense that effervescence, you sense that bubbling up inside you, you can also notice during the day when you start shrinking. As we misidentify, as we put our attention to the external objects of sense, as we start to add the conceptual, and we start to make copies of the environment, and start to get in our heads and live from the map instead of from our more raw and primary experiences that are arising in consciousness, our attention starts to narrow, and we start to collapse. And the more that those patterns of experience start to organize around the limitations, see, what happens is we get some idea of what we want to do, and when it doesn't look that way, when the environment and our lives don't play out that way, then we start to become frustrated and disappointed and all those sorts of things. And in that, there's a collapse. There's a collapse of the consciousness starts to collapse to a focal point of some sort of loss or disappointment, and you can feel that. This is my point. I'm a bit awkward with you guys today, so I hope I get more articulate as things go. So there's a collapse, and that collapse is going towards an ego death. If you examine the collapse, it's always around some expectation that's not met, some disappointment. I didn't do what I wanted to do. Life isn't the way I want it to be, or these kinds of things. So that collapse is, if you can train yourself, and this is why we need this kind of training, because if you put your attention, hold your attention, stay vigilant for the collapse of consciousness into the misidentification, into the timeline, right? Something didn't happen the way it should have in the time it should have, or into the space, into the spatial dimension. I'm not as close as I should be to whatever it is I'm trying to get next to. Or the cause and effect dimension. Something's affecting me in a way that I don't want to be affected. If you can notice that collapse, the collapse of space, the collapse of possibility, it's really the collapse of the ego within the constructed self. And that of course, the structure of the self-experience and the structure of the ego is what is setting the contours of what is possible for you in your own satisfaction in life, or in your imagined life, because at that point you're in the fictitious self, and you're subject to whatever matrix you've built up for yourself, and now you're a prisoner of the self. When we're misidentified, we're all prisoners of the self. And as that prison collapses and gets tighter, and it gets more towards solitary confinement, and towards going towards death, you can feel it, is my point. You can feel it. So when you're doing your meditation exercises and during the training, I want you to pay attention to, you of course hold that expanded state, that feeling of being timeless and boundaryless, and not at the effect of the environment. That state that you've discovered that is your essential, natural, fundamental self, which is in fact consciousness. That state, I want you to hold that state. And as you're going through your life, pay attention to how you're expanding towards joy, and towards your connection, and towards vulnerability, and towards life, and towards the timeless moment. So you see, what happens is, what's really interesting is that if you close your eyes and relax and just pay attention, get the noise down, stop acting, stop distracting yourself with experience, you notice this expanded consciousness, and you notice that it's timeless, and you notice that it's boundaryless, and you notice all these mystical, amazing things. The same will happen if you get completely in the moment in the environment. It's like a circle. If I completely merge with the sound of the rain, or I completely merge with the feeling of the air on my skin, if I completely merge with that, a timelessness occurs. If I am so in love, in the connection with the beloved, time disappears. If I look to the stars and to the heavens, and I enter into a state of wonder, I lose myself. I lose the constructed self in the stars, in the mystery. That expansion occurs. If I listen to a great symphony, or even have a fantastic full-bodied Zinfandel or something, it doesn't matter what it is. If I go into it fully, if you go into it fully, time disappears. the best moments, time disappears. Separation disappears. And again, we wake up in consciousness, in that mystical state that we actually are. And that, so on either side, either if we go in, come down, or if we fully go out, we find that this magic state of expansion and peace and exuberance and joy bubbles up. So what I would like you to remember is to monitor just during your day and stay vigilant for your expansion. And to notice, are you expanding or contracting? If you're on a phone call, or if you're in interaction with somebody, you're thinking about a project, if you're going through your life in some karma yoga fashion, pay attention to, am I expanding or am I contracting? And certainly with the toxic people and the toxic environments, you'll have a tendency to collapse because they're organized towards death. They're organized towards collapse. They're organized towards dissatisfaction. They're organized towards, I'm not getting what I need. I'm not a happy camper. And those people and places that are expansive, that bring you joy, they're organized more towards consciousness, more towards life, more towards that invisible, the fertile void, that invisible space in which everything is occurring, of which everything is sprouting out of the nothingness. Even the Big Bang, the whole universe apparently came out of nothing. That's hard to swallow. So now I guess we have a series of Big Bangs. But if you keep running it backwards, where did the first Big Bang come from? Where did anything come from? What was the cause? Well, there isn't a cause. There is no cause. You see. There is no cause. There is no time. And there is no space. Except in how the world appears. The world appears to have time. The world appears to have space. We get older. It's obvious. You look in the mirror. Things were here, and now they're not there. Things come and go. So the phenomena changes, appears to change anyway. But our essential reality and consciousness remains consistent, omnipresent, omniscient.